It would be great to have someone who could do our work for us, right? Someone to prevent us from making mistakes. Someone to assist with our routine professionally and allow us to devote our time to communicating with our closest people. If only we could get results without wasting our time for nothing. Unfortunately, it's impossible in real life. But wait, Light Forex Social Trading. Spend your time doing what really matters to you.
Good morning, 21st of May 2019 is a minute past 8 CET. Piotr here, and this is the pre-London market, live market coverage on Global Light Forex channel. We are going to have a look and check what is going on ahead of the London Open. Euro is weakening, dollar is strengthening, so it looks like business as usual. Anyway, before we start, just risk warning as usual, guys. Please bear in mind trading FX on margin trading, crypto on margin carries a high level of risk, may not be suitable for investors who can sustain a loss of some or all initial investment. So please do not invest the money that you cannot afford to lose. All right, so where we are, dollar is getting stronger. We are going to check dollar index within the next few minutes. Of course, let's have a look what is on the agenda today. First and important, the most important, we do have a meeting today. We are going to cover New York Open session, at least first part, and we are going to have a meeting at 2 p.m. CET. You are more than welcome to join the, let's call it party, afternoon party around the New York Open. All right. During the Tokyo session, we had a Fed Chair Powell. He's so afraid about the amount of the debt being issued by corporates. Looks like no one is buying low yield government debt. Everyone is buying junky debt. So be careful out there. So that's his concern. Also, LEV and RBA minutes, and the market is trying to position itself towards the June RBA cut. So after yesterday's spike higher, thanks to the election in Australia, actually outcome of the election in Australia, today Aussie dollar is going lower, going back below 69. Is weakening again because of this possible rate cut in June, but we are going to discuss more towards Aussie closer to this RBA meeting. The thing is a question, it's going to be the question of what already priced in, right? So it might be the cut, but it might not be that dovish as some may expect. But anyway, we are going to get back into that closer to the RBA meeting in June. During the London session, there was supposed to be the inflation report hearings, but it was postponed. So that's in relation to the British pound. Nothing extraordinary during the London session, nothing extraordinary during the New York session. It's worth to mention just existing home sales from US, and during the second part of the New York session we do have FOMC member Evans and Rosengren both of them are going to have their speeches. So that's how it looks from the calendar perspective. Nothing extraordinary, I would say. Even it's yeah, we can call it a little bit boring. Let's check what is going on from the option market perspective. An interesting thing is that 111 is almost 700 million on the euro dollar. That actually might be the magnet, taking into the consideration that we are trading 11.53. 109.50, almost half a billion on dollar yen. 134.50, it's a 1.2 billion on USDCAD. That's how it looks from the option market perspective. So let's check what is going on the dollar index. Just 1 second. That's the dollar index. The good thing is for bulls during the Asian hours, bulls were able to take out the weekly open. So looks like after last week or previous week fireworks, there was a tiny correction yesterday, and bulls are trying to take over and trying to push the price higher. The thing is, some supply is expected around 98.30, 98.50, right? But what we discussed before, from the higher time frame perspective, weekly, monthly, looks like 100. That might be the first key psychological level, and trying to imagine what may happen next. I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest with you, taking into consideration current situation. I wouldn't be surprised from the midterm perspective to see the market is going to try to hit some stops around 104. All right. Me personally, from the intraday perspective, from the swing trading perspective, I've been hit a bit last week. I'm going to try to recover, but anyway, from the higher time frame perspective, market is trying to, or maybe different words, market was trying to position itself towards the 1 or 2 FOMC Fed cuts, but looks like FOMC members, they are maybe Bullard, but he's not a voter as far as I remember. They are not in a rush to cut, right? So it might be at some point. I wouldn't say it's for sure. Of course, it's not for sure. But it might be that at some point market may realize that okay, really looks like Fed is not going to cut in 2019, and that would may spur the further dollar rally. Of course, dollar is stronger also because of this world uncertainty. Just to mention the US-China tensions, just to mention US-Iran, just to mention US, the rest of the world. So yeah, that's one of the reasons dollar is stronger. Especially, it might be even more strength and more flow into the dollar because of this whole uncertainty. Anyway, from the higher time frame perspective, 98.30 right now, 98.50, and then towards psychological 100 level on the dollar index. From the intraday perspective, it looks like we want to hit some stops. 98.10 to open. Earlier mentioned at 98.30, 98.50. First possible demand 97.70. Wouldn't be surprised at some point to see a little bit of the pullback here, to hit some stops, to try to find some liquidity, and then eventually to move higher. When it may happen, once we're going to hit 98.10, 98.15, we might see such a pullback on the dollar index. Okay, so let's get back to currency pairs. Let's start with euro dollar. Well, from weekly chart, right? Important thing is here, in my opinion. One can argue some kind of the consolidation ahead of attempt to break higher. I'm not saying it's not possible. What I'm trying to say, that what happened 4 weeks ago, almost a month ago, this lowest 2019 close, right? Then there was a 2 weeks attempt to get back above this level over here, and that's what we discussed. The last attempt in previous week, and strong rejection towards the low. So what we have here is some kind of the consolidation for almost 1 month. But what I think it might happen, we are going to see attempt to break lower, just to fulfill the move towards possible demand based on the weekly there. The blue color over here, blue zone, it's towards 110, the top of that possible demand based on the weekly chart, right? So from the daily chart perspective, yesterday we were trying to hold above weekly open, blue dotted line, right? Right now, first thing first, bears were able to get back below the weekly open, and the second thing is that we are testing yesterday low. So in case of breaking lower, then retest. In case of the breaking lower, I would like to see retest of yesterday low, weekly open, and that might be some intraday selling opportunity here on the euro dollar, right? From the bulls perspective, move above yesterday high, move above the low from the 15th of May. We are talking about this lower shadows here on euro dollar. That may slow down a bit the dollar strength, and above 11.75.12 we might see the rally towards 12.30, 12.60, and then 12.80.13. all right, that's how I see the things on the euro dollar from the higher time frame perspective. On the hourly chart, that's the price action yesterday and today's Tokyo session. Attempt to break lower. Think that here, yesterday during the New York session, that was already some kind of the stop count. We might not see such a price action today. So in that case, once we are going to break lower here, right, retest of the 1160, 1165, today's daily open, that might be some kind of the selling opportunity. I'm going to watch euro dollar, and you know, we do have this afternoon meeting, so that's where we are going to check what is going on euro dollar. Bears are controlling the market for now. Pound. That's where I've been hit, as I mentioned previous week. I've been hit a bit, especially by the pound. Anyway, from the pound perspective, from the weekly chart perspective, we are testing the possible demand based on the range from beginning of the December of 2018. The low from the very beginning of mid-January 2019 as a key psychological level. Here from the weekly perspective, we took out the stops over here below 2770. That's what we discussed. I've been looking, it was my mistake. I've been looking for a reversal, so I've been looking for a stop hand with reversal. It didn't happen. Strong move to the downside on the pound. From the daily perspective, after such a breakdown, we know right now that what was supposed to work as a demand after the breakdown probably is going to work as a first level of supply. I'm going to not use the lower shadow. I'm going to use this time the upper shadow. So looks like attempt to rally towards 128 may face some kind of the supply over here, right? From the daily chart perspective, it was attempt, I would say, yesterday. That what I've seen yesterday when the pound was trying to, especially ahead of the London fix, not just few minutes ahead, but it was like 20 minutes maybe. Pound was trying to get the strength, but it was sold off. I'm talking about this possible over under. So we have a weekly open. Of course, yesterday close was below the weekly open, but still above last week low. So taking into the consideration the price action from the beginning of January is a 10th of January. So we can take the whole from 7th of January, 8th of January, 9th, 10th, and 11th, right? The low over here, then the long lower shadow, and we are testing this over under right now. Somehow I think I'm not going to be surprised to see a little bit of the demand around this level. From intraday perspective, watching current price action, right, and the market behavior around last week low. That's gonna be the key in my opinion here, right? I think one more push higher is possible. So bears are looking for a break below 27, which may open 26.75, 26.50. Eventually bulls may look for false break, right? So some stops below last week low with a lower shadow and trying to push it higher. Taking into the consideration things Brexit related, also taking into the consideration how the street is positioning retail segment, I don't expect huge rally on the pound here. Anyway, we know that because of the Brexit, any kind of the positive news may spur some kind of the profit taking from the short pound, and it might a little bit bigger than what some may expect. So I would be very careful here on the pound. Compare pound to euro. I would prefer to be on the short side on the euro, especially that on the pound, as you can see here, green color, meaning that we are trying to test some kind of the demand from the daily chart. Dollar yen, it's like, you know, from one hand, risk of environment, taking into consideration what is going on with China, what is going on with Iran. On the other hand, Fed members not that dovish as some would expect, plus huge redemption in Japan. This money have to be invested somewhere, right? And taking into consideration interest rate differential, it might be dollar yen, right? So we just need a little bit of the good news in relation to US China, and dollar yen may fly. Anyway, there is a huge fight going on here around 110. Members of the Bank of Japan over the weekend, I saw some comments. They are afraid of that if we are gonna to continue if there is no agreement between US and China going on and further tariffs, the members of the Bank of Japan are afraid that this, let's call it trade war, may bring dollar yen towards 100 psychological level. They were not talking about 105. They immediately they mentioned 100. So we are trading 110. The huge fight is going on. Previous week we retested possible demand. There is a little bit of the bounce, but we are retesting the broken previous demand, which should work as a supply, right? So current price action yesterday high found the sellers around the low from the 6th of May, right? So here, this range from the 6th of May, and at the bottom of that range, the sellers were very active yesterday, trying to fight with the weekly open, blue dotted line, right? So yesterday, there was a both buyers and sellers trying to be active. So again, sellers were active at the bottom of this range from the 6th of May, and the buyers were active around the low from the 25th of March, from the 22nd of March, trying to create over-under after bears were not able to hold the prices below this level last week and 2 weeks ago, right? So for now, 110.30, 109.80, 50 pips range, and yeah, bears fighting to get prices, to push prices lower, to retest 109 and break this demand based on a daily. And bulls, for sure, bulls will fight for this gap close. So we are talking about 100, 111 over here. From the intraday perspective, I'm looking to sell at current levels, move and close above the supply based on the daily, above 110.65, may push prices higher towards the gap close and higher towards 11.20, 11.60. So for now, I'm still bearish a bit, right, with dollar yen. Next, USDCAD. As you can see here, I'm with tiny long, with very tiny long over here. from the daily chart perspective, we are still, if you remember our last, you see that I'm long, but just not to disturbing me. We still, if we can agree, and that's what we discussed previous week, if we can agree, that was the range. So there was an attempt to break higher, and we still trying to hold 50% of that range over here, right? There was a attempt to break higher again last Friday. There was a good news from the Canadian dollar perspective in relation to the steel tariffs late Friday, so there was a rejection over here, but still from the intraday perspective, and that's one of the reasons I'm long here, over under and demand from intraday perspective, plus I think we might see the squeeze over here higher towards 35, and going back, if you remember what we discussed, that as long as we are above the 50% of that range, move higher towards from the higher time frame, move higher towards 136, and if bulls are gonna be able to break through that high, then 138 might be the case, and the next stop psychological 140. When the market may turn bearish, once we are going to get back below this 50% of that range and this demand. So overall, 2 consecutive daily close below 33.35 may turn things bearish over here. Watching carefully, there was a little bit of the support during the late New York session from the oil, as we retest the bottom again. After the pit close, we saw the rally back above 63. So from the chart perspective, right, I think we can call it as a range trading for now. 63.70 to the upside, 62.70 to the downside, so it's a one back range. OPEC is coming into play soon, so we'll see. Still the whole environment, US-China trade tension, US-Iran, as I mentioned before, it's not going to help if we are talking about the commodity currencies, Aussie dollar, Kiwi dollar, Canadian dollar, all these beta currencies. So that's one of the reasons I'm long here on USDCAD. I think that it's worth to mention, probably I should mention about that before USDCAD. Anyway, we were discussing USD Chinese yuan, right? It might be the tool for the Chinese government to offset some tariffs. But anyway, what is going on here? Strong breakout last week, right? First, we broke through 680, 650, 687, and there was a continuation strong into the weekly close and retest of 695. We took out 692 stops, gap been closed, right? And we are testing, and there is from the chart perspective, this over under creation is possible. But again, look, we were discussing last week after the break above 680, 650, 687 that we might see attempt to retest the breakout point, right? That we might see attempt to test how strong the demand after the break is. It didn't happen, didn't materialize. There was move higher, flag creation, break higher again. Looks like yesterday, today, that's the retest of this zone over here after the stop count, right? And market wants to push the prices higher here. Watch out carefully because once we are going to break through 695, yeah, it's my turn the sentiment, positive sentiment off. I would be very careful here as well. And going towards the end of our morning meeting, Nasdaq, great things are going on. The fight between the bulls and bears. So where we are, taking into the consideration the weekly chart over here, taking into the consideration this zone, weekly chart, blue color, all right. There is a little bit of the space to try to penetrate last week low, all right, to hit possible demand based on the weekly chart, all right. On the other hand, previous week price action, we missed a bit, few points, right? The thing is, what we discussed last week, it was eventually after bounce, it was the possibility of creation the over under, and we were discussing that 7,680 based on chart I'm using here, possible, right? It didn't materialize, to be honest with you, but I can imagine based on this weekly chart that what we might see here, it might be somehow attempt to break higher through the previous week high just to hit the low created during the late April, beginning of May, this range over here, just to push the prices lower. So there are the bulls, simply they are going to try to use the demand over here to push prices higher, because from here we went higher, we created new high from here. So this demand below last week low, that's where the bulls resides in my opinion. On the other hand, bears 7,680 based on my chart, 7,700, that's where the bears resides as well. Hi Mer, good morning. Hopefully everything is alright. So that's how I see the things from the higher time frame perspective. Let's get back to daily this time, right? This over under is better visible over here, right? So what I've been thinking about that Friday we might see a little bit higher levels. It didn't materialize, didn't happen. We pushed back here. So what bulls have to avoid, what we discussed previously, right, is the possibility of some kind of the head and shoulders creation over here. So what might be the price action from the bulls perspective, right, trying to trap the sellers. It might be that we will try to break lower through the low, previous week low, right, through the let's call it neckline, attempt to break through the neckline to create this invitation for the sellers with the strong rejection and move higher from here eventually, right? Of course, bears will try to force buyers to run away through this possible weekly demand over here. If you remember what we discussed, there is a stronger possible demand, a little bit lower, and in case of this head and shoulder formation eventually here, or something we can call it as a head and shoulder. So if we would like to fulfill this formation, then this latest weakness over here from the daily chart, so we are talking about the 6,700 level. So great things are going on, huge fight between bulls and bears on Nasdaq. We are not going to cover Bitcoin today. The only two words, there was another ETF delay by the SEC, but I'm going to check the Bitcoin chart on the separate meeting. It's going to be recorded. It's going to be available later should be available later during the day here on the global Light Forex channel here on YouTube. That's it from me this morning. So be careful during the London Open. You are more than welcome to join me during the afternoon meeting at 2 p.m. CET. Have a great morning. Take care. Goodbye.
It would be great to have someone who could do our work for us, right? Someone to prevent us from making mistakes. Someone to assist with our routine professionally and allow us to devote our time to communicating with our closest people. If only we could get results without wasting our time for nothing. Unfortunately, it's impossible in real life. But wait, Light Forex Social Trading. Spend your time doing what really matters to you.